So again, we have person constructor. When you first create a person, you can provide a name and age, or you don't have to if you don't know the name yet. So we can call person, and inside this is going to initialize with some name as a default. Now get name and set name. So think about, after we create a person and person want to change their name, then we can use set name and provide a new name, right? Then we can update that person name. How about get name, right? Get name, same like if I want to identify what is your name, right? We talk about the system. This is a computer program, right? So program should be able to retrieve the person name, right, out from the object. So that's why we provide get name. Like for example, when you sign in, right, through your Gmail or your Blackboard or any system, it's gonna have the message welcome followed by your name, because they pretty much know after they get authentication, they just do get name and get your name out from the system. So how about set age and get age? So set age is when you want to think about the form that you fill in when you apply to this college, right? So if you need to change the age, it's wrong, then you can set the age right there, and the system can also check the age by getting the age from you. And lastly is toString, just display all the user information. Like if you want to get the details of this person, it's going to call toString and get the name and the age of this person, just like your ID when we create ID. So now we talk about what's an object, right? Comparing, right, in Java, comparing to real world. And we use an example of person. And we also talk about how to draw the Uml diagram using the Lucy chart. Now, from the UML diagram, right, that we see, we're going to construct a Java class, right? So this chapter, we want to emphasize how to create a Java class. So you may see that we can construct Java class from UML diagram here. So let's look at how do we do that. I'm going to turn on Eclipse, right? We're going to use Eclipse here. Alright, so that one I was using Lucy chart. You can use any other tools, but I just want to show you how to use Lucy chart. It's very convenient and easy to use. Now, let's talk about Eclipse here. I'm going to create a new project, right? And when we design object, alright, so this is just like a civil engineer, right? Think about when you want to build a house, a building. Would you be able to just go ahead and get bricks and mortar and start to build them? Nope. You need a design. Same here. This is our design. This is our blueprint. Right? So in programming world, we have a blueprint, UML diagram, right? So this we start to construct an object, right? Just like engineers construct the building, we construct a person object, right? But it's going to be intangible, meaning that you cannot touch. It's like a software. You cannot touch, right? But this is going to represent that real world object, and this is called object-oriented programming design concept. So now we're going to construct now with the program, right, with the tools, which is the Java language is our tools. We're going to build a person, right? and object person. So I'm going to say project name, okay, JavaClass. You may create a project like if it's relevant to the system, right? Like you can happen to create a system for authentication, then you can say authentication project, right? So now in this project, I'm going to have class name person. I'm creating a class, right? I don't need to include the main anymore. I'm going to talk about why, right? But one more thing, let's look at, I'm going to delete this again. So there was a check mark I don't need to delete. All right, new class, construct from superclass, constructor from superclass. You see that they talk about constructors now, right? So we can check that too. But now I'm going to create a constructor like that. If I want to jump into a method, right? But the good way is just do by sequence, right? We had a UML diagram. We're just going to open on the right hand side, right? The design that we have. So we say we're going to start from the attributes first. Okay, so I'm going to start from the attribute first then. I'm going to get rid of this first. So the attribute name. So how do we declare in Java? Minus is we call private, right? And name, string go first, the type, and then name. Okay, and private int age. Right, so I'm done with those two attributes. Now I'm going to construct a constructor plus represent public, right? That we mentioned. And then the constructor name person, right? And this is the implementation. We already know the syntax, open curly braces, closing curly braces, right? For the implementation of the methods, right? We talked about that from last class exercise, right? So public person with string name, comma, in age, right? With two parameters. And this is actually just mimic what we see on the design that we just created, right? And the next one is we want to create get name, set name. So public get the name of the person, and this is the type. It's going to return string, right? They have type string. You may notice that, right? String as a type. Person constructor, we don't have type, so that's why we don't need to give the type. And constructor is not required you to have type, okay? But the other method view, you will always have to have type. If no type, we have to specify void. Now it's going to have an error because it's waiting for you to return the name, which this is the name that we want to return. So we're going to say return this dot name. If you want to use this dot name. Now we come to the why we want to do this. So we know that inside the get name, normally we don't really need to have this. We can just say name, which is fine. It's going to return this person name from here because it pick up the attributes right there, right? But let's look at where I do set then. Public, the other one, right? Set name. And the type is void set name and string name. Now when I set the name, notice this. This is also the name. Look at the color, they're different, right? This name and this name, they're not the same. The name that we talk about here is being constructed when this person was created. Like for example, I created a person. I initialized this person name as John. If the person didn't give a name, I make John, right? Same as age, I'm initialized to maybe 0 years old, okay, as initial values, right? But when I want to change the John name, like John happened to grow up and want to change his name, or there's a mistake in the system, by default I put a John name because it's not a required field when you fill the form, application form, right? It's not a required field, then we put John as default. Now you want to pretty much update your record, right? You put your own name. Then set name, you put your own name as tennis. You see that tennis, not John anymore, right? We have tennis stored in variable called name, and we have John stored in variable called name. So this is called instant variables. That's why I said attribute is also called instant variables, right? It's a variable to the instance of the object person. But this is just a regular variable as a parameter that you pass in to be a temp to hold that information, right? Temporary holding the information. How we can say name equals to name. It's going to be very confusing. Are you referring to this name? You see the color said, am I to put tennis equals to tennis? Then it's better to say no. I'm talking about this dot name. I mean, John is going to change the name to tennis, right? So that's why we use the this, right, reference. We call this reference to make sure that whenever you use this dot, you refer to the attributes of the class, right? Not the parameters. All right, so that is about this reference. Now we can look at our constructor here. We're going to implementing it, right? This dot name, right, to refer to that attributes when we create a new, right, newborn with a name, right? So we can provide a name, not the default, right, anymore, right? Same this dot age equals to age. Okay. And it's very common that you want to name your parameters exactly the same name as the attributes of the object, because we refer to that object name, the attribute's name, but distinct by the dist reference. Now to return, it's not required you to have this dot. You could put it or omitting it. Okay, for this time I'm going to omitting it. Okay. Now we have public, so we're going to finish with get age, which is going to return int. All right, so we are do int and get age, return age. All right, so public void set age, int age, and then this dot age equals to age. So that's how you construct, right, all the methods in JavaClass. And lastly is toString. I want you to pay attention to this one. So it's going to return string toString. It's pretty much very simple. I want to return string, right? Then, but I want to return all the information about this user or this person. So this dot name, right? And you just want to make sure, you might want to do some spaces, right? And you want to make sure that you may put name in front. Then we know we talk about name, right? And this is pretty much just age, right? This person name with this age. Just return in a nicely formatted, right? When you display information of the person, then this dot age, right? Or age, which is fine too, or name, that's fine too, because there's no parameter that you need to distinct, right? So that's how we construct the Java class from the UML diagram. We create the attributes or instant variables of Java class, which is, we seen it here, string name and age, and we create a method of Java class, right, person construct